Permissions in Confluence control what you can do, but there's two kinds. Here, we'll talk about global permissions. Global permissions define what you can do across all of Confluence. Now, these are only accessible by a Confluence administrator, so most people, most of the time, will not be interacting with these. And most of the time, a group will take a look at these when they first start using Confluence, and then kind of leave them alone for a long period of time. So we're going to dig into what these are. We'll talk about the two different permissions that individuals can have, and then we'll dig into other types of permissions that are accessed from the global settings. These include things like guest permissions, public links, and anonymous access. Now those last three, guest access, public links, and anonymous access, allow people without a license to access Confluence. Guests are individuals who have limited access, usually just to a single space. Think of them as a contractor coming in to help out temporarily. And you can have up to 5 guests per licensed user. You cannot exceed the total number of users in your instance, though. This is also not something you should be doing instead of paying for a license. So if someone legitimately needs one, make sure they have an appropriate license. Public links allow you to expose individual pieces of content on the internet. For example, you may have a specific how-to article or release note you want to share with someone who does not have a license. You can turn this feature on, and that will allow you to share just that piece of content as a URL link to others. Anonymous access takes that a step further. It opens up entire spaces to the entire internet. This can be beneficial if you need to share, say, how-to articles or release notes or pre-hire information, but does make it possible for anyone on the internet to access your Confluence site. So typically groups control this very carefully. It can also be disabled at the instance level. So it is possible your org admin or your site admin will prevent you from using those last 3 features. So now that we understand what's in store, let's jump into Confluence and see what these look like. Here I am in Confluence Cloud Premium, and to see global permissions, I need to access this gear at the top. Now only Confluence admins see this, and this will bring them to Confluence administration. And what I'm looking for is security under my settings, and then global permissions. This contains every global permission that I am able to control on this Confluence site. The first tab will show me user groups. Now this allows me to control personal spaces and the ability to create a space. Most groups I work with turn on personal spaces. This gives everyone a space in Confluence to go do whatever they want. They can tee up documentation or test things out. These spaces always are named after the individual they belong to. So Robert Heen's personal space is just called Robert Heen. Typically, this is turned on for most, if not all, users. Create space, however, allows individuals to create a new space in Confluence. Typically, this is more controlled, as you don't want just anyone making a space. You'll quickly end up with 5 versions of support, or it'll be spelled incorrectly, and this will result in people putting information in the wrong spot. So typically, create space is a little more constrained. Now, you will notice I can't add individuals here, only groups are allowed. So I'll have to work with my organization admin or org admin to determine which groups are most appropriate. Next, we have guest access. Now this does have to be enabled, so if my org admin does not allow this, I can't use it. Next, I have guest access. Now this has to be enabled by my organization admin, so it's possible I, as a site admin, can't do anything here. However, once guests have been added by the org admin, they'll appear here. Keep in mind, guests have a very limited set of access. They cannot do things like make a space, but they can work within the space they are assigned to. Again, very useful for someone who's coming in to help out temporarily, but should not replace a full-on license. Next, I have my public links. This is something that allows me to expose individual pieces of content to someone on the internet. This page allows me to enable or disable this feature across the entire site. So the Confluence admin can decide, we're going to turn this off entirely to prevent anyone from accidentally turning it on. I can also enable it, and this allows individual spaces the ability to go on and turn this on. So as the site admin, I'm responsible for determining if this should be allowed or not, and then individual space admins have the ability to go turn this on. Further, I can see which ones are using public links, how many views they get, and I have additional controls. I can stop allowing these links, but the space admins can go change that. I can stop it and prevent the space admin from doing it and get more information. So each individual space admin is responsible for turning this on or off in their space, but then I, as a site admin, can stop individual spaces from sharing things. If you use this feature, please make sure you're taking time to look at it on a regular basis to make sure spaces that should not be sharing things publicly aren't doing that. Next, I have my anonymous access. This takes public links a step further and allows anyone on the internet to come in and use Confluence. Now, this means that they could go in and edit or modify content. So I want to be very careful about enabling or turning on anonymous access for my site, as it allows space admins to expose large pieces of information. I am typically very careful about turning this on, and then if I do, I always want to double check which sites are using it. Again, it has some use cases. You have public-facing Help Center articles or release notes. You want to share those. That's great. However, you also might accidentally share something sensitive. There is one additional permission in here, and that's the ability to view user profiles. Typically, if you're using anonymous access, this is turned off. If this is turned on, it allows people to see more information about individual users, potentially things like location, email, or manager, depending on the setup. So keep in mind, you can optionally allow them to use Confluence or just view it and optionally give them access to user profiles. The next permission I have is Jira Service Management or JSM access. This allows me to optionally let Jira Service Management users view Confluence information even if they don't have a license. This can be very useful in environments where you have a lot of agents working in Jira Service Management. This is very similar to anonymous access in that people can use Confluence or view things or see profiles. However, it does require either a Jira Service Management agent license or access as a customer to your Jira Service Management site. So you have a little bit more control compared to anonymous access. And last, we have the ability to control access to apps. These are third-party apps you may have got on the App Store. Depending on the app, they only need more or less permissions. However, you as a space admin can control what they are able to do. For example, create spaces, view profiles, or have personal spaces. So those are all of our global permissions. Again, everything we spoke about impacts everyone in your Confluence site, hence the name Global Permission. They are only accessible and modifiable by site admins though. So if you're only a space admin, make sure you talk to your site admin about why these are turned on or how you can interact and work with these. I'll be curious to what your setup is. Drop a comment down below or join us over in Discord to chat about global permissions. Groups typically forget they exist, so they end up stuck with a setup. So make sure you're investigating them, talking about them, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in another one of these again soon. Me again, thank you so much for watching that video. Check out more here and pop down into the description. I've got a blog with weekly content. I also have a lot of online learning on Atlassian stuff and project management. And if you need personalized training for you and your team, reach out and let me know. I'll be happy to get something set up for you. Thanks again for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here again soon.